League of Women Voters School Board Candidates Forum, recorded March 4th, 2026.
Good evening and welcome to this forum for the Stevens Point Area Public School District School Board candidates sponsored by the League of Women Voters of Wisconsin Stevens Point, the Portage County Business Council, the University of Wisconsin Stevens Point Pointers Vote Coalition, the University of Wisconsin Stevens Point Student Government Association, and the Stevens Point Area Senior High Student Senate. My name is Sue Buck, and I'm a member of the League of Women Voters, and I will serve as moderator for this event. The League of Women Voters is a political but nonpartisan organization. The League's primary purpose is to encourage voting by registering voters, providing voter information, and advocating for voting rights. Tonight's event is part of the providing voter information through candidates sharing their views of issues of concern to Stevens Point Area Public School District residents. The co-sponsors of the forum, the SPASH Student Senate, the UWSP Student Government Association, the UWSP Pointers Vote Coalition, and the Portage County Business Council are also nonpartisan organizations with no endorsement of candidates or political parties. Their interest is in helping local citizens to be more informed voters. The Stevens Point Area Public School District covers over 400 square miles. It was once part of the Menominee Nation. It is one of Wisconsin's largest geographical districts. There are 9 elementary schools and 2 junior high schools. The Charles F. Fernandez Center and the Stevens Point Area Senior High are the 2 senior high schools. The Point of Discovery School is a public charter school for grades 7 to 12. There are 6 specialized programs: early childhood and 4K programming, Boston School Forest, Online Learning Center, Project Search, Rural Virtual Academy, and Summer School. For the 2025-2026 academic year, the student seat count was 6,751 and 522 classroom teachers for PK to 12th grade. Additionally, there are 442 staff and other roles, such as instructional aides, guidance counselors, librarians and library staff, district and school administrators, bus drivers, support staff, and other support services. The consolidated budget total revenues for the fiscal year 2025-2026 for all district funds was $151,326,417. The total expenses for the consolidated budget for the same period were $153,517,562. The Stevens Point Area Public School District has 9 school board members. The members are elected for a 3-year term. Citizens of the Stevens Point Area Public School District, 18 years of age or older, may run for a board position. The board meets on the second Monday of the month. School board members are compensated for their service at a rate of $3,780 annually. There are 7 candidates running for 4 open seats. The candidates are Miguel Campos, Jeff Ebel, Ted Kowalski, G. Pope, Elizabeth Potter Nelson, Chris Scott, and Alex Summers. All candidates were invited to participate in this evening's forum. Joining us this evening are Chris Scott, Elizabeth Potter Nelson, G. Pope, Ted Kowalski, and Jeff Ebel. Miguel Campos was not able to join the forum because of a schedule conflict, and Alex Summers did not respond to the invitation. To provide the most time to hear from the candidates and to provide a fair and equal opportunity to answer questions important to you in this community, I will review the format, time, and terms for this forum. This has also been reviewed with the candidates. Each candidate will first have a minute and a half to introduce themselves and make an opening statement. They will have 1.5 minutes to respond to questions, and they will also have a minute and a half to make a closing statement. And I will repeat a question if you need me to do that. Candidates will first respond to questions submitted by the forum sponsors and then questions from the audience. Questions from the audience must be addressed to all the candidates. If you want to submit a question, please motion to one of the ushers. They're back there. They have index cards and pencils. The League reserves the right to review and screen questions for relevance and to avoid duplication. The timers are in front of the candidates table. A green folder will be held up when the time starts. A yellow folder indicates 30 seconds remains, and a red folder means the time has expired. Candidates may finish their sentence and then please stop so the next candidate may begin their response. Candidates are asked to keep their remarks germane to the questions and fair to the participants. Audience members are requested to respect the candidates' time and responses, and we're all asked to turn off any sound-making devices. And the moderator reserves the right to interrupt to ensure that these ground rules are observed. The order of response to each question will be rotated. We will alternate which candidate answers the question first. The order of the opening and closing statements will be chosen by a random drawing of the candidates' names. As I have already stated, participants in tonight's forum are Jeff Ebel, Ted Kowalski, G. Pope, Elizabeth Potter Nelson, and Chris Scott. And we will now begin with a minute-and-a-half opening statement. And I have my handy-dandy pull it out of the thing. And we're going to start with G. Pope.
Excellent. My name is G. Pope. I'm a retired teacher. I spent 20 years teaching chemistry and biology at SPASH, 6 years teaching at UWSP. I taught chemistry there. I have 30 years total teaching. I had some years before I got to Stevens Point. I was 20 years wrestling coach at SPASH. With several other people, we founded the SPASH Athletic Hall of Fame back in 2000 or something like that. I've had 3 sons go through the district, K through 12. My wife taught in the district for 30 years. She was a special ed teacher at various schools around the district. We've lived 40 years in town. I think this is our district. We came here, we tried to get in many times, get jobs here, and we waited at other districts. We finally got our chance. This is where we live. And this is where we're gonna live. And our idea is to make where we live better. And so we both go about that in our own ways. I guess you could say I summarized my feelings on education is saying that my old mentor had in education is that every kid matters. Doesn't matter who they are. Could be the kid that's sitting in the back of the room, never says anything. Could be a kid, if you like them or not, doesn't matter, or where they come from. Every kid matters. Thank you.
Okay. Elizabeth Potter Nelson.
I have the mic. Oh, you're good. Hi. Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity. My name is Liz Potter Nelson, and I'm running as an incumbent to be elected onto the school board. In September, I was appointed to the school board with a majority of the votes by my fellow board members. In addition to serving on the board, I'm a community member and mother to 3 awesome students in the district. I'm an alumna of the district where I have vivid memories of being a kindergartner in Mrs. Carpenter's class in Roosevelt Elementary, a second grader in Mrs. Bickford's class at McKinley, and also being in Mr. Pope's chemistry class at SPASH.
And you still turned out okay.
Yeah, I did. I'm a former high school science teacher myself and administrator, having taught in the Chicago Public Schools, North Suburban Chicago, and here in Stevens Point. I'm a current education professor and researcher, where I have the distinct privilege of teaching people who want to be teachers. Education is my life. I know the positive power of public education. I know how public education creates opportunities for students, and I've witnessed the diverse opportunities here in the district that provide unique pathways so that every student can find success. When I think about my role on the board, my goal is to make sure that we put students first and empower the community, because we know that strong public schools are going to benefit everyone.
Thank you. Jeff Ebel.
Hi, my name is Jeff Ebel. I am from Stevens Point. I am a real townie. There aren't many of us, but I have a wife and 2 children. Both my children went to public schools here in Stevens Point area. And, well, judging on how they turned out, I'd say we had a pretty good school district. My daughter is a chief medical officer at a community clinic in Milwaukee, and my son has his own business in Colorado. He's a metal fabricator. I was a business owner. I had my own business for 18 years. I sold it, so I did succeed at it. I actually made some money. And it was very, very rewarding for me to have my own business and to be able to contribute something to the community. I understand because I work with entrepreneurs now. I'm actually an instructor for continuing education through the university here. I teach entrepreneurship. And I realized the importance and the value of having small businesses in the community. It's the lifeblood of a community. It's what keeps people here. It's what brings people here. So I'm very fortunate to be able to work with entrepreneurs in the area as a teacher, but also as an angel investor and managing an angel investing group. So I am looking forward to being able to serve for you people on our school board, and because of the importance of education in our communities. Thank you.
Thank you. Chris Scott.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Chris Scott. I previously served on the school board here for 21 years. I was born and raised in Chicago, and I think part of the reason I started getting involved was the education that I received was not, I would say, quality like it is in Stevens Point. And the reason I started getting involved is I had a son, and my son spent most of his school years here, and I realized how important, not only to my son, but for all children, how important education was in their life. I think children have always been my focus on the importance of giving opportunities, not only from the board and the district, but from the community, to make sure that when they leave here, they're able to move forward in the world, in an ever-changing world. For me, as a retired person who's now serving as a community member on our Business Services Committee, I decided that the things I wanted to choose were things that really made me happy, things I could contribute to. And as far as onboarding or being part of the school district, I've pretty much been in every area. I was also here an educational assistant in a couple of the schools, and I also was on a lot of committees, and I did a lot of research on funding for our schools. So I really think I've lived the history, and I wanted to continue to add that to the rest of my career.
And Ted Kowalski.
Thank you. Hello, I'm Ted Kowalski, and I've been a resident of Plover for over 35 years. I currently serve as the Vice President of the Stevens Point School Board and was the Treasurer last year. I bring decades of leadership experience, including Level 2 recognition through the Wisconsin Association of School Board Members, WASB, along with active involvement through Toastmasters and other local organizations. I'm committed to steady, experienced leadership that prioritizes student success, academic excellence, and safe, inclusive schools. I understand our district's finances, especially as declining enrollment reduces revenue while our overhead costs remain largely fixed. I will focus on long-term stability, responsible budgeting, and protecting classroom instruction and student services. In my conversations across the community, I constantly hear a desire for strong academics, safe schools, and careful stewardship of our taxpayer dollars. My focus is to balance these priorities by thoughtful, data-driven decisions and communicating openly with community and taxpayers. With steady leadership and disciplining our budget, we can keep our schools strong, high-achieving, and sustainable. I respectfully ask for your vote to continue this work in our community.
Thank you. We will start with the questions. I did get a high sign that people in the back need to have you have the microphone closer to your mouth to be able to hear you. So I'm not going to say eat the microphone, but at least have it closer to your mouth. That will help the people in the back. Thank you. So first question, and I'm going to start with Jeff, and we'll go down the line. Stevens Point schools showed some increase in growth and achievement categories as reported in the 2024-2025 district report cards, but achievement gaps, especially in special education, continue to exist. What more do you think can be done to lessen the achievement gaps that still exist?
This actually is the work of the school district. It's the work of the community to continue. This is an ongoing battle. It's not something that you are going to achieve tomorrow and then you're done. You can wash your hands and say, okay, we finished our job. It's perpetual. And there will be times when conditions are unfavorable, possibly due to funding or disruption in the school system that can cause a setback, and COVID was a setback. There's no question about it. But it's how we deal with those things. Are we going to recognize that, yeah, we have issues and we're going to collectively find answers to it? How are we going to address it and move the data so that we can actually see what's working? And sometimes you try things and they don't work out the way you thought. That doesn't mean that you failed. It means you're going to try something else. Things change so rapidly today with technology and demands in the community that it's a perpetual job. So we continue to try to bring in the talent that we need to do it. We continue to keep our eyes open and look for other ways of doing things. Maybe because you get in a rut sometimes, but we always have to continue to look outside. What can we do differently? How can we do it better?
Okay, thank you. Ted Kowalski.
Can you repeat the question, please?
I sure can. Stevens Point schools showed some increase in growth and achievement categories as reported in the 2024-2025 district report cards. But achievement gaps, especially in special education, continue to exist. What more do you think can be done to lessen the achievement gaps that still exist?
Thank you, Sue. Thank you, Sue. Yes, they do, and we're very, very proud of the achievements that we've made and that the increases that we've seen in helping our students. We talk about the top 10% and the bottom 20%, and I think that we do a really good job with the people in the middle for our students for achieving our academic goals. But we are focusing now and trying to do more for those in the lower end. I think that Jeff makes a good point. This is nothing that is going to be done quickly. And one of the things that we're doing is we're helping to change the culture in our schools. And part of the culture is the expectations that teachers have for the students. And this is a slow process. It doesn't happen overnight, but it is happening. And teachers are having increased expectations for our learners to do better and to do more. And this is a great thing, but it takes time. Additionally, I think that we're working well with it. Our administration, our staff, and our teachers are all on board, and we're working toward the same goal.
Okay, thank you. G. Pope.
Thank you. I just jotted down a couple things. As far as achievement goes, we had a few years when we were kind of going down. Our scores were going down, but they've gone up in the last couple of years, and I attribute that to the heavy lifting done by our staff. We've turned it around, and I think the mechanisms are in place to keep it going. We're regularly reviewing our curricula. We're really taking a look at those scores, and we took a look at them this last time, and we noticed some gaps. Yeah, and some kids in the special ed were not coming along with the rest of us. Well, we know, and we're going to do something about it. And that's the one thing I like about our staff and our administration. We're not afraid to look at data. If it says there's a problem, we're going to tackle it. In the past few years, our administration has made academic interventionists to catch those kids, to find them. We've increased the rigor in our classrooms, And I know in talking with Jeff and Chris, our assistants to Corey, is I would say, well, why can't we just do this? and of course, then they would tell me. So this is hard work. This is hard work. And the people doing the hard work are in the classroom every day teaching those kids, and they've done just a marvelous job to get us back on track. And now we're going up in our scores.
Good to
Yes.
start? Okay,
Yes.
sorry, just wanted to make sure. I think this is a great question, and I think we need to remember that we need to put students first in the decisions that we make. I know that our teachers are doing wonderful things with our students. We get regular updates from both Chris and Jeff, who work in our elementary and secondary with our administrators, and we know that our teachers are doing really heavy lifting. We also know that, as it's been shared by everybody, this is slow, deliberate work. This is conscious work where we review curriculum, we look at test scores, and we give teachers the flexibility and the freedom and try to create space for them to really get to know their students and leverage those decisions in making sure that they are meeting our student needs. One of those pieces that was also addressed earlier is keeping high bars for our students. Earlier today, even in the class that I taught, we talked a lot about teacher efficacy and how much that belief in our students really, really, truly matters. And so when I think about raising test scores and supporting all of our students, I really think a lot of this comes back down to our teachers and letting them excel in the areas where they excel, and giving them that freedom and that flexibility to be able to craft their lessons with deliberateness to raise those scores.
Thank you. And Chris Scott.
I'll try to keep this closer.
I know, I realize
I know. I want to date this thing. So one of the good things about the administration that we have is they share the information that they're looking at every day. And that's really important. One of the things when you look at the achievement gap and you look at marginalized students, years ago we used to say when kids come into our classes, these are not cookie cutter kids. They're all coming from different places with different, needs and knowledge. So if you look at our special ed students, I actually was a shadow aide for hearing impaired students, and we modeled and did a different kind of teaching for that student. And so when you look at students who are English language learners, special education students, students from a different race, students who have gender identity questions, low social income, those students they're right in the place that we look at, and we see those scores. And so our teachers and our staff and our administration is aware of it. And the great thing is those scores are given to the board, and we look at that and we watch as they're trying different things and they're different learning methods. And we watch it increase, or we change what they're doing, and we're continually letting the board know where they are, where they were, where they are, and where we want them to be. So that's really important to have that information.
Okay, thank you. We'll start the next question with Ted Kowalski. And here's the question. According to the Stevens Point School District budget for 2025-26, school vouchers cost the Stevens Point School District $3,790,000. Do you support school vouchers? Why or why not? Do you support moving voucher school funding out of the current mix of state and local funding and into the state's general fund?
Wow,
There you go.
good question.
Fix that one.
That's an involved question. First one, do I support school vouchers? The short answer is, I think I do. School vouchers, there's a place in this country for us to let students pick and go where they want to go for their schools. The problem with school vouchers is sometimes they can be used to access where they're draining the resources of the public school district, because students that could be in our district aren't because of the school vouchers. And the way the legislature is doing the funding for school vouchers hurts the school district. School funding is very transparent across the board, but vouchers are not. And that's one of the reasons for the comment about how much money of our school budget is going for vouchers. It's actually coming from our budget because we're collecting the money for it. And so, for the second part of the question, would I like to see it be done with more transparency? Yes, so that people understand where the money is going and how it's supporting both the school district and the voucher program.
Thank you. G. Pope.
Thank you. When you mentioned I think it's 7.7% of our budget goes out the door to voucher schools. I started my teaching career at Wisconsin Rapids Assumption. I taught 4 years at the Catholic school there, and I remember a priest telling me, this was in the 80s, he said, we were just talking about vouchers, and he said, we'd be smart not to take any government money, because then we can teach what we want to teach. And I thought that was pretty wise. Turns out the money's gone there and without any strings, and I think that's, hey, you take money from somebody, you should be responsible for telling them how you spent it. Fortunately, the schools who take vouchers don't have to be accountable. And I think that's a real problem. I think Mike Kurtz, our business guy, did a little demonstration for us once. He had a bunch of peanuts in a jar and he started taking peanuts out. And he says, and these peanuts come out for vouchers. If we didn't have vouchers, they'd still be in there for us. I don't know, there's kind of two schools of thought that having vouchers come through the schools or having them separate. I don't think anybody really knows whether that's a good thing or not. But I do say this, I'm running for the public school board.
Yep.
I advocate for the public schools. Private voucher schools have their own advocates. I'm not concerned with them. I'm concerned with the public school.
Okay, thank you. Elizabeth Potter Nelson.
One applause.
This is a really valuable question to be asking right now. Our public schools have to be there to help our students succeed. And ultimately, every single family needs to make the choice that is right for them on where they want to send their students. However, the point to really focus on here is that voucher money is public taxpayer money that our schools never see. It is money that never comes in the door. It is money that goes out, and there is not that accountability with that money. Teachers are not held to the same standards that our teachers are held to. There's not the same curriculum standards, the same curriculum focus, and ultimately, that money, there isn't the same accountability to. I currently sit on our business services committee, where every single month we look line item by line item at how our money is being spent within the district. Our teachers and our school district has to be accountable. And when we send public money out into the voucher program, there's not that same accountability there. And so really the conversation should be focusing around that transparency and funding, and really making sure that public money, we know how it is being spent.
Thank you. Chris Scott.
Sorry, I don't mean to drop it.
No. And I totally agree with Liz. The one thing that, when I first started being involved in the school district, I went around the state with a number of friends to study funding in Wisconsin. I believe that students should be educated in any way possible. They could be homeschooled. They could be in public schools. They could be in charters. They could be in private schools. We need to make sure those kids get an education wherever they are. When you look at the different districts in the state, look at Milwaukee. There are students there that are way different than students here in their needs. So I think as a community, if we want to be able to not go to referendum every year and go back to the taxpayers, we have to realize there's no guarantee on the funding that we get from the state or local or federal government. So it's really important that we try to make sure that we know that we're getting as much money to support the public schools as we can. And again, I understand the reason for vouchers, but that accountability between public schools and voucher schools is not the same. So you've got one group here being funded by the state, one group here, and they're not following the same requirements that they are. So as much as I'm glad that some students and some districts have vouchers, I don't think it's a fair system for us.
And Jeff Ebel.
Thank you. To me, it comes down to about fairness. It's about what's fair. I am not necessarily against vouchers. I am not at all in favor of the way that it's implemented. The devil's always in the details, right? They make good sound bites, but when you really dig into it, you realize there's a lot going on that we just don't really know about. I am a graduate of Pacelli. I did 12 years. Oh, the truth slips out now. It was a great education, and I'm very lucky to have that experience. I come from a big family. I'm the second oldest of 9 kids, and my father was not able to bring the rest of the kids, the rest of our family, through parochial school. That's not uncommon, especially in our community. How can we support a certain group of people at the expense of other people? And that's what I'm talking about, fairness. So in principle, I can understand vouchers. They are providing a service for the community that if they weren't doing it, the public schools would have to pick that up. But, and again, the devil's in the details, let's be fair about it, because we are not held to the same standards. They are not held to the same standards that public schools are.
Thank you. And we'll start with G. Pope with this next question. If the Stevens Point School District budget finds itself with a funding gap due to a decrease in enrollment and uncertain funding from the state legislature, what ideas do you have to address this gap?
Thank you.
Well, we're already addressing it. I believe probably the overriding concern for the next 10 or 15 years is declining enrollment. That's my opinion. Which means we're going to get less money because we get paid per student. So that means less money, and we have an ongoing program now where administration is looking at each program in our school and deciding what do we really need for the next couple of years. Where our staff no longer needed, of course it's all been done due to attrition, and what facilities don't we need anymore. So we're taking a look at it all the time. We also have a 45-member committee that's being appointed and starting right now that's going to take a look at what we're going to do for the next, believe it runs to 2040. We predicted our enrollment right now is like 6,700. It's going to be down at 5,100. That's the prediction. That's a lot. And we have people in the community already starting to work on that. How are we going to do that? How are we going to go through this declining enrollment successfully so that we can maintain our education for all our kids, maintain the quality of education we have now, the quality of teachers and so forth. So we're on it. We're doing it right now, planning ahead. And we're not just going to wait for it to happen.
Okay, thank you. Elizabeth Potter Nelson.
Thank you. As G kind of mentioned, we're working and doing a lot of the hard work right now. We get monthly reports from in business services and then at the school board on how we are being fiscally responsible. Chris shares work that he is doing in evaluating our programs, looking at when teachers retire or leave the district, kind of where we can support students and where we can support teachers and if those positions need to continue. And we see combining of some programs that where it makes sense. All of these things are done in the best interest of our students to make sure that our students are receiving a top-notch education, but we're really starting to do that heavy work. We're taking a look at where everything is located and starting to make decisions. We even get information from Mike Kurtz, who is in charge of our business department, where he is projecting out kind of best and worst case scenarios and helping us kind of be proactive and plan for the future. As G also mentioned, we recently had an organization, a company, do an evaluation for us, which predicted out kind of enrollment for the next through 2040. And now we're going to leverage our community and really hear how our community wants to make decisions moving forward. So the task force will start meeting hopefully in April and start looking through the data and looking through what that means throughout our community so that we can make effective decisions moving forward.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And Chris Scott.
So, as Liz said, we have an ongoing task force that will be looking at a lot of things. I think in the school district, I've been around for so long, that one of the most important things we do is a systemic review to make sure we're looking at everything. Number one, how will things that we do affect students and their education? That's number one. Whether it's 5,000 or 6,000, what can we look at? We're looking at programs, we're looking at buildings, we're looking at the way things are being done and how can we, change things. What can we add? What can we take away? But we've got to have an idea of where we want to go. I used to be a programmer, and that's how we would function. In the end, and when they say 2040, I may not be here in 2040, but I really, well, you never know. I think it's really important, though, to get a vision of where you want it to be. And to do that, you need to know, how are we doing now? What are we offering that we don't want to lose? And knowing that in 5 years, education may change. There may be a number of things that we don't have yet and we're going to have. So the systemic review and looking at our strategic plan, which may have to change again, as long as you have that view of where do we want to be, what do we have, what do we want to have, what do we need or just want, because those two things are different. What are really important to our students and our community, and I think we're doing that.
Do you want to sit down?
Thank you. Jeff Ebel.
I am not at all in favor of running public organizations like businesses. I work a lot with businesses, but there are some things that they have in common, and there are some things that apply to both the public and the private. If you don't have enough revenue to deliver your mission, you have two choices. You can either increase revenue coming in, or you can decrease your expenses, the money going out. Now, with the funding model that Wisconsin implemented many, many years ago, there are very few opportunities for you to increase the money coming in. Matter of fact, really there is only one way. They've narrowed it down. It is referendum. So we really are faced most often with the option of either going to you folks, to the community, and saying, look, we do not have enough money to deliver the services that we believe you want and need, and we're going to ask you for more money to be able to deliver that. On the other side, if the community says, no, we're not willing to give you more money, the only other option is to start reducing services. Now, I have been on both sides of that where we had to do both, and typically we do both, and I've always commended the school district for their fiscal financial policy, for their fiscal policy. They've done an exceptional job at some very difficult times to keep money going, and I just will continue to do that as well.
Okay, thank you. Ted Kowalski.
Sue, I like this being last. Addressing the funding gap that potentially would happen, and this is a potentiality. Look, the legislature hasn't funded us for a long time, but things are changing. They've actually moved ahead to fund special education, special ed, more than they ever have in the past. Currently, they're using some sufficient funding, which means they give us as much money as is left over in the budget. So they brought us up to 42%. They don't have enough money to give us 42% funding for what we pay for special ed. We're going to end up with 36%. Next year, we're supposed to get 45%. if they would move it to some certain funding where we would actually get the 45%, that increase in funding alone in the legislature would take care of our needs and would actually almost bring us up to, well, to a better place anyway. But the legislature changes just like we do too, and the funding is a fact that if the legislature won't fund us, we do come to you and we do look at referendum. I don't see that happening anytime soon because our board, our administration, our staff, and everyone in the school district understands, and we're being very fiscally responsible. We're looking ahead, we're being proactive. We have the committee looking at what would happen with declining enrollment. I think there's some opportunities in declining enrollment which will be hard to take, but with potential school closings, we could right size what we have and make things maybe work better than what they are.
Thank you. Next question, we'll start with Elizabeth Potter Nelson, and this comes from the audience. How do you feel about separating special education students from regular classes, and why?
There you go.
Oh, this is a great question, and I think it really leverages some of the work that I've done in the school district already. Prior to moving into the university, I actually served as our secondary curriculum and instruction coordinator, and I worked really closely with Connie Niegard and the administration at SPASH using UDL, which is Universal Design for Learning, where what we really do is we look at how to create possibilities and opportunities for students within our general education classrooms. How can we differentiate? How can we scale? How can we support students across the board in all of the work that we do? This is also work that happened when I was a department chair in Illinois. One of my teachers, our AP Chem teacher, actually approached me and said, hey, he also taught honors chemistry. I taught regular level chemistry. And he said, what if we did away with honors chemistry? What would that look like? It's a model that's been happening in suburban Chicago for a little while. Evanston Township High School does it with biology. And so there's a couple different ways that we can think about it. And really when we leverage and think about the strengths that our students are coming into our classrooms with, it allows us to start to get creative with what we can do in the classroom. There's some catches with it where we have to support our teachers, we have to think about class sizes, there's a number of pieces to it, but ultimately when we think about creating inclusive education experiences, it really is bringing everybody into that classroom to give them opportunities to succeed at the same rate.
Okay, thank you. Chris Scott.
So the only experience I really had, other than being a substitute educational assistant with special needs students and being a shadow aide for a hearing impaired student, both those students were in a regular classroom. And I have to say, the administration and the teachers were aware there would be challenges, but I also know that teachers and support staff who are on the front lines, they realize where needs are being met and where they're not being met. And I think it's really important to do, from my experiences, to do as much as you can to keep students together in their classroom versus separating them, pulling them out, keeping them away from everyday work that needs to be done. And in many cases, what I saw with a couple of students that I worked, it actually had them raise their level because the administration and the teachers and the staff, especially that support staff, they were aware, they were watching, they were listening, and they worked with parents to make sure they understood. It raised the level of those students. So pulling students out or keeping them separate, I think in society today, we want all our students to have the same opportunities and to help them raise the level in ways that we can. And I think we've done that in a number of places. So I'm really an advocate for having students be where they can do, raise their level as much.
Thank you. Jeff Ebel.
I know.
Again, I think it's devil's in the details, but I totally support it where it's feasible. And I was just thinking, as everyone was answering this question, what it was like when I was a kid going to school. And we didn't share classrooms with any special needs kids. They were separated. I don't know where they were, but I know they were in the community, but they weren't in our class. And as a result, you lose touch with that from my perspective. You know, I could have learned so much from them as well. And then I see what's happened in the last, 20 years or so. My son, my daughter, they have a completely different perspective on it. That's because they grew up with special needs kids, and they're just part of the group. They're just, and again, so if this is the result of incorporating special needs into regular classes, I say do it as much as you possibly can, because I think the outcomes are obvious, at least they are to me, and I think we should continue to do that.
Okay. Ted Kowalski.
I spend time with G. Pope, and G is the chair of the Education Committee. G has explained to me numerous times how important it is to keep special ed students in class. Having them in class makes them included, makes them feel like they belong. If they feel they belong, they do better, they achieve more. Inclusivity and belonging are important to it. But this is hard. It's not always easy to do. And this comes back to the money end of the thing. And the funding would help us. If we had more educational assistants to help special needs students in a classroom, they could be in the regular classroom more often and learn better and do more. I'm very much in favor of it, and I appreciate G teaching me that.
And G. Pope.
Thanks, Ted. So I'm in a kindergarten classroom in Appleton, and I found out after I was in there, Appleton has they're very big on inclusion. So I'm watching what's going on. There's a student teacher in there, and the teacher is, there's 20 kids, 5 are, one's in the corner rolling around, another one's over here, something's wrong, and then the other, they're just all over the place. And afterwards, I talked to the teacher. I said, how do you do this every day? She says, don't you worry. We're going to get them. And we're going to get them by the end of this year. And then the next teacher is going to take them. They're going to get better. And by the end of the semester, they were better. This is a true teacher. And we've got them in our classrooms here in Stevens Point as much or better than anybody. They can do the job. So when we have IEP meetings, it's just my feeling that the first question should be, how do we do this in the classroom? Not, well, we're going to get them 20 hours, 20 minutes of reading a week, pull them out, and then we'll put them back in. No, you can't miss what's going on in the classroom. And I think that will increase our achievement scores with that group of kids. You can't ask people to be tested on things that they weren't there for. So for me, it's inclusion until you tell me they can't, which is kind of an opposite view from some places where this, I hate the word push in. No, we don't push them in. They're there already. It's when can't we do it in the classroom? Thank you.
Thank you. And this question will start with Chris Scott. If immigration and customs enforcement comes to town, how will you, as a school board and a school board member, protect students and their families? This question came from the audience.
Wow, that's a big one. One of the things I believe in, having been on the school board for as long as I was, is roles and responsibilities. When someone asks what I will do as a board member, the administration runs the daily operations of our district. A school board member works with 8 other members, plus professionals and professional educators. If someone says to me, what are you going to do? What's the most important thing? The first thing I would do is I would immediately contact the superintendent and say, what are we doing about this? What is the district going to do? How are you going to empower the people who work here? How are you going to protect all of the people who are in this building, mostly the children? And what are we going to do? And how how are you educating people as to, this is such a new thing. How are you educating them? What kind of a process are you putting in place? And how are you letting everyone know legally what we can do, legally what we can't do? And how are you going to spread that message to make sure that when something happens, we know what to do, all of us together. The community knows that we're looking at it. But the administration who runs the daily operations of the district needs to send that message and make sure they prepare in every way we can to protect all of the people in the district.
Thank you. Jeff Ebel.
Boy, Chris, I couldn't agree more.
Yay.
But there are other things that we can do as board members. One is to support our district and to support the leaders in the district. First of all, to identify, risks that could be that could cause harm, or and then also to help clearly articulate the culture that we want to cultivate in our district, and support the leadership in developing and maintaining that culture. Cultures happen regardless of whether you have something in mind. They just will emerge, and most often if they emerge, it's not the culture that you want. So I think safety should be just part of our thinking, our thought process. So as we're making decisions, always keeping that in front of our mind, that this is an issue. But again, we don't make those decisions. We can encourage the school board to go in a certain way, and again, support the efforts that they are doing to maintain the safety in the schools.
Thank you. Ted Kowalski.
Repeat.
Yes.
Now that I knew, I have to give it back to you.
If Immigration and Customs Enforcement comes to town, how will you as a school board and a school board member protect students and their families?
Thank you. Before I retired, I was doing tax auditing, or tax accounting for my career. And I was dealing with the IRS, and we would have audits with the IRS and get letters from them oftentimes. And I think I would compare this to an IRS audit in that you would be respectful and you would not volunteer any information except whatever question they ever ask. And for what question they have, for what they have a legal responsibility for, yes, yes, and yes. And for what they don't, there's no answer required. I would work hard to see that their rights are protected as best we can, just like any other citizen in this country and any person here. So I think it actually is a good comparison between an IRS audit and an ICE visit.
Okay. G. Pope.
I was at a Wisconsin Association of School Boards, we call it WASB conference last week in Elkhart Lake. The whole last hour was about this. And a lawyer was going through all the legalities, and the final answer was it depends.
Yes, it does.
Room full of lawyers, that's what we came up with. But I will tell you this, when we talk about safety, I go in and out of schools all the time, all year long. And some are easy to get into, some are hard. I'm proud to say that we are fairly hard to get into our schools, which it should be. But to me, the real safety factor is you can have all kinds of gadgets and things like that, cameras and stuff like that. It's the person sitting on the other side of the door. Do they feel empowered to say, no, wait till I talk to somebody? Or are they scared? Are they going to let them in? I think most school secretaries I've found are, they're pretty tough. It's hard to get into that school. And not at all schools. In our schools, I think they are. We have protocols. Mm-hmm. And we have to make sure that, like I said, the person behind the desk with their finger on the button has to know that they have the right to refuse entry to somebody with a mask on standing at the door. Well, of course, we're not gonna let them in, and we have to give them the power to do that. And I think they have it.
Thank you. Elizabeth Potter Nelson.
As been shared by everyone, our public schools should be safe places for every single student to learn. When we think about public education in and of itself, like every single person who comes within our school community, within our boundaries, has a right to a free education. Regardless if you're here for one day, regardless if you're here for 12, 13 years, regardless of your immigration status. Actually, last January, our superintendent emailed parents and reminded us that every single student has the right to a free public education, regardless of their immigration status. And as schools, we are not required to collect or share information about a student's immigration status. As a classroom teacher, I've seen this play out where I have taught students from all walks of life, and I've never known their status as a US citizen. Like, that's, my job is to teach them, not to know that about them. Corey in her email also remind us that our schools are to remain safe spaces for learning, growth, and support, and that our job is to provide a welcoming environment for every student. We also know right now, as of today, to my knowledge, that our Portage County Sheriff's is not partnering with ICE, where we know other communities and counties have. And so really, as G was talking about, it's really the people, we have very, very safe schools, and do we empower the people who are letting folks in to make sure that they have the power to say no or to get more information? And so it's really focusing on and continuing to make sure that our schools are safe places for every student to learn.
Thank you. We'll start with Jeff Ebel on this question, and this is from the audience. Has there been any discussion on immersion classes from kindergarten to middle school in the languages or science, as is being done in the Verona, Wisconsin school system?
Could you repeat that again?
Yeah. Has there been any discussion on immersion classes from kindergarten to middle school in the languages or science, as Verona, Wisconsin school system is doing?
I can be
Jeff,
brief.
could I ask whoever submitted the question, could you explain more by what you mean? Are you willing to do that, by immersion?
Yeah, because my answer is I don't know.
Well, I know about language immersion schools, but I don't know about science or...
Okay, I'm gonna take it.
You want
Jason. And the reason I'll take it is because my grandkids live in Verona. And actually two of them,
Really?
yeah, Kayla and Ryan are taking immersion in Spanish. And so what's happening is they're learning half their classes like in the Spanish language, which is really cool because they're like almost kind of fluent. And Ryan is 13 and Kayla's 10. So the immersion thing is an intense kind of thing. To answer the question, we haven't really looked at it here in this school district yet. It's something I think that's down the pike. I think right now we are focusing more on immediate problems and trying to keep things on a financially stable basis, and then also trying to raise the academic standards for our students. But this is something for the future. The immersion programs, I feel from my grandkids and for what I've seen, is really a positive thing and something that we could be looking at as a board and as an administration.
Anybody else want to answer that? Call it good?
No, he did it pretty well.
Okay.
Oh, do you mind if I go now?
No,
Okay.
We'll take a stab.
At the state convention this winter, I went to an immersion school in Milwaukee. It was a Spanish immersion, and it was really interesting. It was great. I loved what was happening at the school. One of the teachers said his kids are in a German immersion school in Milwaukee, and he didn't speak a word of German. Just they wanted to do that. I think it's a population thing. I don't know if Point is big enough to support that. If there are enough kids, well, certainly. One thing I'm proud of this district is that when there is a need, we answer it. We don't say, no, we can't do that. We really look at it and see if we can. Hence PODS, CFC. They answered needs that we had. And if we had, I don't know what it would take, 20, 30, 40 kids who wanted to do a Spanish immersion school, we would say we're going to look at it. We wouldn't say no. And that's one of the things I'm proud of this school district is we look into things, and we are there to answer the needs of our students.
Anybody else?
Yeah. Oh, is it okay?
We're done if you don't.
No,
have
do you mind if
Oh,
I-
oh,
okay.
please. I thought you said you didn't. You weren't going to. Sorry about that.
No, that's okay. I'm sorry to be misleading. I think both Ted and G talked about how we need to put students first in the decisions that we make. And if the community is asking for something, then that's definitely something that we as a board can pursue. As a second, third, fourth, fifth, and sixth grader, I actually had Spanish instruction as I was growing up here in the Stevens Point School District. It wasn't every single day. It was kind of a unique program, but it allowed me to learn Spanish very quickly. It allowed me to then advance in Spanish throughout my junior high and into high school. It culminated in a trip to Spain, which was an awesome experience. So I think that as we think about putting the needs of the community first, if that is a need that the community needs, then that's definitely something that we can pursue and look into as a school board.
So I don't know that much about immersion schools, but I do know that students being bilingual is an asset. Today, to have more than one language, some students have 2 or 3 languages. The one thing I learned about with working with kids who were in kindergarten, first grade, and second is, the younger kids are, the quicker they pick up languages. I actually had, when I was young, my mom was Greek, and that language was spoken continually in our family. And I remember it was normal for me to speak, understand that language from the time I was little. So if there is a need and a desire and we're able to do that in the district, I think it would be a wonderful asset, depending on if we can afford it.
Oh, yeah, there's that.
Thank you. We have about 5 minutes left to do one more question, so I'm going to ask the timers to do a 1 minute instead of a minute and a half.
A 1 minute.
1 minute. Okay, and we're going to start with Ted Kowalski.
I like last.
Sorry. We rotate. What will you do to reduce class sizes?
Thank you, Sue. I don't think we need to do anything to reduce class sizes. I think it's a fact that's going to be happening as our demographics change across Wisconsin, all across the state. In fact, the projections are, and that's why we've started proactively doing the 2020 or 2040 committee report, seeing how we can deal with these and what we can do to right-size our facilities, our teachers, and our students for what we have. So
That's it.
I think we're kind of at a good spot that way.
Thank you. G. Pope.
Well, when we visit classes, Ted and I go around and visit schools, and first thing I do is count the kids in the classroom, number of desks. And then, as I told Ted, you don't know what 30 kids in a classroom is until you feel it.
Yes.
And it's crowded, as opposed to 24 is a much nicer number. Well, we're pretty much there. I mean, as much as any public school can. We find classes occasionally 30, 29. But the first thing I do is run back to Chris and say, we need to give that person an aid. And, that's me. That doesn't always happen. They usually have aides come in and out to help them out. That's one thing we notice that larger classes is there are adults wandering around doing stuff with kids from time to time. So I think we're okay with class sizes. Our kindergartens are about 20 or less, and I think that's a good thing. I hope they remain the same with decline enrollment. They should. I don't see any reason why they wouldn't.
Thank you. Elizabeth.
I think in this conversation, we really need to put teachers and students first in the decisions that we're making. Oftentimes, we just spoke earlier about how we're looking at funding and looking at where teachers are, and as teachers leave, do we need to refill that position? I have regularly taught high school classes with 28 students, and G's right, the difference between 24 and 28 is huge. It doesn't sound like it is, but it would be. I've also been a parent, and I've panicked when I've seen just how large my students' class is. It isn't that large, but as a parent, putting that lens on, it can be kind of alarming. And so, I mean, we're not pushing there, I get what people are saying, but I think it really takes conscious budgeting on our part and decision making and really thinking about what we value as a district moving forward. Yes, we do have declining enrollment, But as we're also looking to be fiscally responsible and looking at how budgeting is coming in from the state, I think that there's some conscious decisions that we can make. If we value those smaller class sizes, then we can look forward and find other places that we can be conscious within our budgeting, because we really need to support teachers in this one.
Okay, thank you. Chris Scott.
I think class size does make a huge difference. Years ago, I was in the Educational Services Committee, and we spent a year looking at the class size policy, and it kept changing, and they kept looking at it. And one of the things that came into the discussion was parents want a community school. Well, when you have 3 students who are going to school, or 2 in a school, and you want to keep them in the same school, you had to look at the class size and say, well, this school, you may have larger class sizes, but you can keep the kids. But honestly, for the teachers and for the staff and for the kids, the fewer kids you can have in a classroom makes the difference. And I've seen it happen. I've seen class sizes go from 30, literally 30, to 25, and it was a major difference when you talk to the teachers of what they were able to do. And when education changes the way it has, and what we've put on our staff to add to the educating students, the less makes it a lot easier.
Thank you. And Jeff Eagle.
It's a monetary issue. It costs more money to educate 24 in a classroom than it is 30. And until this country changes its values and really values education, then the money will be there to be able to do that.
Okay.
True.
Thank you. We will now move into our time of closing statements. It is an opportunity for the candidates to comment on topics not covered in the questions. The order of the closing statements will again be chosen in random drawing, and each candidate will have a minute and a half to present a closing statement. And our first closing statement is Chris Scott.
Of course it is. Okay, so I have a lot of papers here because after serving for 21 years, you put a lot of information down. You want to cover as much as you can. But I'd like to read something that I wrote because I think it's important. I'm interested in serving because I believe I bring a number of qualities the board, district, and community would want in an applicant. I have a deep understanding of the roles and responsibilities of a school board member, understanding that the superintendent and administrators run the daily operations in our schools. But one of the important things that people should know, that a school board member's 3 major responsibilities are hiring a superintendent and evaluating that superintendent because they run the operations of our district. Also, we pass a balanced budget and we monitor that budget because it's really important. All the money that is reflected in that budget affects all of our schools and our district. The third is we set policy in the district. We now have a company who looks at all the policies. We used to do it hand by hand all the time at every meeting. Now they look at it and they look at the legal aspects. But the other thing, when they give us a policy to approve, we look at that policy and we try to put in there, does this reflect our community's values? Because that is really important when you're setting policy for the district. Those 3 things, I think, are key to a successful board.
Thank you. Jeff Eagle.
I'm a strategic thinker. I'm a pragmatist. And what made me decide to run, by the way, I was on the school board for 10 years. I did forget to mention that earlier. But I said to myself and some of my friends that I would consider running for the school board again if I felt that the skill set that I have, the experience that I have, is valuable to the board and to the district. And I realize what we're confronted with now, the challenges with redistricting or reorganizing the assets here and trying to deal with the declining enrollment. Those are challenges that I think I am equipped to be able to add some value to the process here. I'm a collaborator. I love to collaborate. I also love to build consensus, so I like to get involved and find out what this community's vision for our public education is, and then create a strategy for us to achieve that. And I believe that I have the tools to be able to do that, and I would appreciate your vote.
Thank you. G. Pope.
What?
You're left out.
Thank you. Two things. First of all, in my capacity as education chair, I was talking to one of our administrators one time, and they said, you know, what I'm really proud of in our district, ever since we've been here, is we give kids opportunities and choices. And it's always been about that. Even and today, from the 80s till today, since I've known this district, it's always been about opportunities and choices. So to me, that's an education that looks like this, like that. And then we're looking at achievement scores, and DC Everest has better achievement scores than us. But they kind of funnel kids into straight, narrow lines, and they seem to get higher scores. I said, well, that's not good. And the administrator says to me, we can do both. That gets me excited. The other thing is, when I go into schools, you know, it's like Ted and Jeff are the money guys. Money bores me. I don't want to talk about it, but I know I have to. And they set me straight. It's like walking around in a school and you stand in the hallway and you listen to teachers teaching kids. That's what gets me excited. To listen to a kindergarten teacher read to her class, I want to run in there and sit down. Education happens between the teacher and the kid, and it's just so exciting to see that. And that's why I'm running for the board again, because I think we do it better than anybody else.
Okay, Ted Kowalski.
G and I talk about what's more important than being on the school board, the educational committee or the finance committee. And we do go back and forth. And frankly, we've changed our attitude a little bit both ways. The decisions we make here will help shape our district in the years to come. Declining enrollment and financial pressures are real. I think they do offer us opportunities though, and I think there are some good things we can do with these problems even though they are problems.
Absolutely.
I believe in strong academics, safe and respectful schools, and responsible stewardship for our taxpayer dollars. We must protect our classroom instruction, support our students, and remain transparent in our community about what we're doing and how we're doing it. I bring financial oversight, governance training, and a calm, thoughtful approach to decision-making here on the school board. And I hope that you'll continue to support me, and I respectfully ask for your vote.
Thank you. And Elizabeth Potter Nelson.
Thank you, everyone, for the opportunity to share just a little bit more about myself and my campaign this evening. As I've shared, strong public schools benefit every person in our community. And when I think about my own trajectory in education, I keep returning to the positive impact that public schools have had on my life and the life of my students. Last week, a student was interviewing me and asked, what's the best part about being a teacher? And I immediately responded, the students. Yet, as I was giving that response, I was reminded of all of the different students who I have taught and who have benefited from their public education experiences. In my first year teaching, there was Cecilia, who knew that her education could open possibilities and saw her schooling as a doorway out of a really, really hard life. Later on, there was a student, Andrew, who as a sophomore knew he wanted to be a special education teacher. And after going to college, came back and became one of my colleagues as a special education teacher. And more recently, there was Soren, who reached out and shared how impactful my classes had been in helping them as they are now student teaching this semester. I carry a piece of every single student with me as a teacher. I worry about them, I believe in them, and I cheer for them as they reach for their goals and dreams. And if you ask any teacher, they will have similar stories and sentiments. On the school board, my goal is to continue putting students first and supporting teachers because we know that strong public schools benefit everyone in the community. And that's why I'm asking for your vote on April 7th.
All right.
Thank you, and thank you all. Thank you to the candidates for the time and energy they have invested in running to serve on the Stevens Point Area District School Board and for participating in this forum. Feel free to talk with constituents in the lobby as we have another forum following this one.
Awesome. Thank you.
On the April 7th ballot, Portage County voters will also be voting for several other offices, including Wisconsin Supreme Court, the Portage County Executive, the Portage County Board of Supervisors, and the Stevens Point City Alders Districts 2, 4, 6, 8, and 10. The League of Women Voters has a candidate guide which may be found at vote411.org, and myvote.wi.gov also provides information about the April 7 elections and the voting process. This concludes the forum for the Stevens Point Area District School Board candidates. Again, thank you candidates and audience for your participation and attention. And we also wish to thank Seth Hendricks and John Quirk of the City of Stevens Point who recorded this forum and will replay the forum on the Stevens Point YouTube site. Along with tonight's forum, the Stevens Point City Alders Forum, the Portage County Executive Forum, the Portage County Supervisors Forum will also be available on the Stevens Point YouTube site. These broadcasts are an appreciated service to area citizens. Thank you to the League members, the Portage County Business Council, the UWSP Pointers Vote Coalition, the UWSP Student Government Association, and the members of the SPASH Student Senate who volunteered in various roles this evening to make the forum possible. We couldn't do it without all of them. And I want to also thank Todd Neuenfeld and the staff of the Portage County Annex for their assistance and for the use of these rooms. The League believes that when you vote, you are participating in one of the most basic and important responsibilities you have as a citizen. When you vote, you are empowering your political voice. Please remember to vote on April 7th. Your vote does count. Now let us show our appreciation to the candidates and have a good evening.